It was supposed to be a quiet funeral, a final goodbye to a woman who brought love to everyone she met. But just as the pastor began to speak, a muddy little puppy darted down the aisle, panting, whining, and carrying something around its neck. At first, people were confused. Then someone read the message on the collar, and that's when the tears came. Not for the woman in the coffin, but for the story that was about to unfold. This is not just a story about a dog. It's a story about loss and secrets, about the way grief can blind us, and how sometimes the smallest creatures can carry the biggest truths. When a puppy no one had ever seen showed up at a funeral uninvited, no one could have imagined what he knew or who had sent him. But once his collar was read, everything changed. Hearts broke, truths were uncovered, and a family's past was rewritten by pause and tears. The church on Elmwood Lane had never seen a crowd this large. Rain pattered gently on the stained glass windows as umbrellas lined the stone steps, and soft organ music floated through the chapel air like a sigh. Inside, the casket lay open at the front, carved mahogany, decorated with a simple arrangement of lilies. The woman inside wore pale blue, her silver hair neatly brushed. Her name had been Margaret Dawson, but to those who gathered, she was simply Maggie. Beloved teacher, volunteer, friend, and to one man sitting in the second pew, hands clenched in his lap, she had been Mom. Daniel Dawson hadn't cried since the day his mother was first diagnosed with early-onset dementia 2 years ago. She had faded slowly, forgetting birthdays, confusing names, and sometimes even mistaking him for his father. Now, at 34, he felt like a hollow shell, trying to do right by the woman who had once done everything for him. Beside him sat his Aunt Claire, holding a crumpled tissue. Across the aisle, family friends and old neighbors filled the pews, whispering memories. The pastor cleared his throat. Today, we gather not to mourn a life lost, but to celebrate a life lived. Daniel's mind drifted. Then a bark. Everyone turned. Down the center aisle came a puppy. Not a service dog. Not a pet someone brought by accident. Just a small, soaked mutt. Tan with white paws, his fur muddy and his eyes wide and alert. He ran, stumbled, then skidded to a halt right in front of the casket. Whimpers echoed through the chapel. A child gasped. Someone whispered, "Whose dog is that?" But no one claimed him. The pastor paused, confused. Daniel stood, approaching the puppy. It looked up at him and wagged its tail. That's when he noticed the collar. Something metal dangled from it, a small tag, engraved. He bent down and gently turned it over. His hands froze. There were only 3 words engraved on the tag. And Daniel recognized the handwriting. It was his mother's. Scratched deeply into the tag, it read, "For Daniel, forgive me." His breath caught. People whispered louder now, some standing. Claire leaned forward. "Daniel, what is it?" He didn't answer. He just clutched the tag and stared at the puppy, heart pounding. This wasn't just a stray. This was sent. But how? From where? And why now? The casket lay still. The photo on the easel showed his mother smiling by a flower garden from years ago. The woman he remembered. But now he wondered, how much had she kept from him? The service paused. Daniel stepped outside with the puppy in his arms, unable to breathe under the weight of everyone's stares. Claire followed him. "Dan, what's going on? What did the tag say?" He turned it toward her. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God! That's her script." He nodded slowly. "I don't understand." Claire shook her head. "She couldn't have. Dan, she passed away 4 days ago. That puppy's no more than 3 months old." "Which means," he said quietly, "she must have arranged this before. But arranged what? And for what purpose?" Back at the house that night, the puppy lay curled at Daniel's feet while he flipped through old journals, letters, and photos. Claire made tea and sat beside him. "I don't get it," she murmured. "Your mom didn't have pets." "Not since Dad died," he confirmed. "She couldn't even bear to visit the shelter." They grew quiet. Then Daniel remembered something. The storage unit. Claire blinked. "The one she rented 2 months before her diagnosis?" He nodded. "She said it was just for old clothes and junk, but she made me promise not to open it unless she was gone." "Do you still have the key?" "I do now." The next morning, Daniel drove to the unit, the puppy riding shotgun in the passenger seat. It was cold and gray outside. When he slid the lock open and lifted the creaking door, dust swirled up like ghosts. At first, it looked like ordinary storage. Boxes labeled kitchen and gardening, a stack of old books, a few family photos. Then he saw it. A wooden chest, wrapped in blue ribbon. A note taped to the top. "For Daniel. Open when you're ready." He hesitated. The puppy barked once. Daniel knelt and opened the chest. Inside he found a scrapbook, but not of family photos. It was filled with letters, one for every birthday from the last 10 years. And each one ended the same way. "Forgive me." Daniel sat on the cold concrete floor of the storage unit. The mysterious puppy curled up beside him as if they'd known each other their whole lives. In his trembling hands he held the first letter, the oldest one in the stack. The envelope was yellowed. The ink faded, but the handwriting was unmistakably his mother's. He opened it slowly, heart pounding. "Dear Daniel, you just turned 25 today. I remember the first time I held you, the way you screamed at the top of your lungs, demanding to be heard. You always did have a strong voice. I wish I could be at your birthday this year. I know I'm not around as much anymore. I've told you it's because of health reasons. But that's only part of the truth. I've kept something from you. Something big. I didn't mean to lie. I just didn't know how to tell you. One day I hope you'll understand. Please forgive me. Mom." Daniel wiped a tear from his cheek. He looked down at the puppy. The little guy stared up at him with big, round eyes, tail wagging slightly as if to say, "Keep going." He reached for the second letter. The letters painted a picture of a woman who had struggled with guilt. Each birthday brought a new apology. More hints. More fragments of a truth just out of reach. In one, she wrote about a mistake she made long before Daniel was old enough to understand. In another, she mentioned someone named Eliza. Daniel froze when he read that name. Eliza. Why did that sound familiar? He stood up, digging deeper into the chest. Beneath the letters, he found a manila folder marked "Private. Do not open." Naturally, he opened it. Inside was a birth certificate. Not his. Name Eliza Dawson. Date of birth March 14th, 1996. Mother Margaret Dawson. Father unknown. Daniel staggered back, stunned. That was a full year before he was born. He had a sister? He clutched the folder, pulse racing. No one had ever mentioned a sibling. His mother never spoke of Eliza. There were no pictures, no stories, nothing. So where was she? What had happened? Why did no one know? He looked at the puppy again. Somehow, in that moment, he felt the dog was trying to tell him, "You're getting close." He took everything home. That night, Daniel called Claire. "Did Mom ever mention someone named Eliza?" Silence. Then, "Oh no. You knew." "Daniel, I thought she'd told you. I begged her to." "She didn't," he said, voice shaking. "Tell me." Claire sighed heavily. "Your mom had a baby before she met your dad. She was young, scared. She never told anyone, not even her parents, until much later. She gave the baby up for adoption." Daniel's hands clenched. Why didn't she ever tell me? She couldn't forgive herself. She always thought, maybe one day Eliza would come looking for her. But she never did. Maybe, Daniel whispered, she did. The next morning, Daniel called every local shelter and vet in the city, asking if anyone had brought in a puppy matching the one at his feet. Nothing. Then one call struck gold. A small animal clinic on the east side confirmed they'd seen the puppy just a week ago. He was brought in by a young woman, the receptionist said. No name, but she left a note with him. Daniel's heart leapt. A note? Yes, said she couldn't keep him, that he needed to go to someone named Daniel Dawson. Daniel nearly dropped the phone. Can I see it? An hour later, he arrived at the clinic. The puppy bounced along beside him, leash in mouth. The receptionist handed him the folded note. His hands shook as he opened it. I wish I had the courage to say this in person, but I don't want to ruin your life. I think we might be siblings. I found Mom's name last year after a long search. I saw her once at the park sitting on a bench. She looked kind, tired but kind. I was too scared to talk to her. I didn't know she was sick. I never got the chance. I left Milo with her. He's trained to guide people home. I didn't know if he'd find you, but I hoped. Eliza. Daniel sat in the clinic lobby for a long time, the puppy, Milo, licking his hand. So she had found Mom. Too late. But she had found him. Now it all made sense, the collar, the timing, the mysterious message. Margaret must have met Eliza before she died. She must have known who she was. And in her final days, she must have written those letters, left that chest, and arranged for Milo to find his way to the funeral. So Daniel would know. So he wouldn't be alone. Claire listened quietly as Daniel told her everything that night over the phone. We have to find her, Daniel said. Eliza. She's out there. She may not want to be found, Claire cautioned. She sent me a puppy and a letter, Daniel replied. That's more than a message. It's a plea. He stared at Milo, who wagged his tail and barked once, as if in agreement. Then we start tomorrow, Claire said softly. Daniel nodded. He had a sister. Somewhere out there was a woman who shared his blood, who had lived in silence and fear, wondering if she belonged. Now he had a reason to bring her home, and he wasn't alone. Milo would lead the way. Daniel had always believed he was an only child. But now, with the truth unraveling like a long-lost thread, he realized that the woman lying in that coffin had hidden more than he could have imagined. A daughter, a secret, a second chance, sent in the form of a puppy with muddy paws and a message on his collar. And now he needed to find her. Back at his mother's house, Daniel laid out everything they had. Every letter, the birth certificate, the note Eliza had left at the vet, and one more clue he'd nearly missed, an old photo tucked behind the last letter in the chest. It showed a young woman, maybe mid-20s, standing next to an elderly lady on a park bench. The older woman was unmistakably his mother. And though the picture was faded, the younger woman had a resemblance that chilled him. Long auburn hair, the same deep-set eyes as his own, written on the back of the photo in shaky handwriting. March 12th, City Park. She found me. His mother had met Eliza, and someone must have taken this photo. Daniel turned to Milo, who sat patiently beside him, head tilted. She left you with Mom that day, didn't she? He whispered. But why didn't she stay? He had no answers, only questions. But now he had a place to start. The next morning, Daniel and Claire headed to City Park. They walked past the fountain, the playground, and the old sycamore trees until they reached the spot from the photo. The same bench. It still had a slight crack on the side. Daniel stared at it, trying to imagine the moment. His mother sitting there in her final months. Eliza, gathering the courage to approach. The weight of decades crashing silently between them. Claire spoke quietly. She must have asked someone nearby to take that photo. Maybe someone remembers. They began asking vendors, walkers, and the old man who painted portraits near the lake. Then, a woman at the food cart nodded slowly. You know, I do remember a lady with a dog asking me to take a photo for her. It was a couple months ago. She seemed nervous, kept hugging the older woman. Daniel's heart leapt. Did she say her name? No. But she bought a tea and left her receipt in the trash. I remember because she wrote something on the back. The woman opened her cart drawer and pulled out a small napkin. Miraculously, she'd saved it. Written in hurried cursive. If you ever read this, Daniel, I'm sorry. And underneath, a phone number. Daniel's hands shook as he dialed the number on the napkin. 1 ring, 2, 3. Then it went to voicemail. Her voice was soft, tired. Hi, you've reached Eliza. I'm probably off-grid for a while. If this is about Milo, please know he's safe now. That's all I wanted. He left a message anyway. Hi Eliza, it's me, Daniel. I know everything. Please, just call me back. He hung up. Milo whined. Claire touched his arm. She's scared. I know, Daniel replied. But she reached out once. Maybe she will again. That evening, Daniel's phone finally buzzed. A text. From an unknown number. I didn't think you'd actually look for me. I'm not ready to be a sister. I don't know how to do this. He stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the keys. Then he typed back. You don't have to be ready. Just be honest. That's all I'm asking. No reply. Hours passed. Daniel walked to the porch, Milo following behind. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the neighborhood. He looked down at the dog. You found me when she couldn't. Now what? Milo just wagged his tail. Then the phone buzzed again. Okay. 1 coffee. Public place. Tomorrow at noon. Greenhouse Cafe. Daniel exhaled, heart racing. She was coming. After all these years. After all the silence. He was finally going to meet his sister. The next day, Daniel arrived at the Greenhouse Cafe 10 minutes early. He sat at a corner table, back to the wall, hands gripping a mug of coffee that had already gone cold. Every time the door jingled, he looked up. Then, finally, she walked in. Eliza. She was exactly as she appeared in the photo, but thinner now. Dark circles under her eyes. A guarded expression that said she wasn't sure whether to sit or run. But when she saw Milo curled under the table, tail wagging wildly, she froze, then smiled, and sat down. I wasn't sure you'd come, Daniel said quietly. I wasn't sure either, she replied. There was a long pause. He missed you, Daniel added, nodding toward Milo. She blinked rapidly, then reached down and scratched the dog behind the ears. I thought about keeping him, but I couldn't. Not after she... Eliza's voice caught. She gave me that picture. The one of us. She said you deserved to know. That you were good. She kept saying that. Daniel swallowed. She told me nothing. Not a word. I only found out after. I'm sorry, Eliza said. So am I. They sat in silence. 2 strangers connected by blood, and a lost woman who had loved them both in different, quiet ways. I used to wonder, Eliza whispered, what kind of family I'd have had if she'd kept me. I was angry for a long time, but when I saw her on that bench, I just felt sad. She was scared too, Daniel said. She always said forgiveness was harder than love. I left Milo hoping he'd get to you. I trained him myself. You did good, Daniel said, smiling. He found me. At the funeral. Eliza covered her mouth, tears slipping down her cheeks. Oh my God. Daniel reached across the table and gently took her hand. You're not alone anymore. They spent hours talking. Not everything made sense. Not every answer came. But they talked. About their mom. About growing up. About what they missed. About what they could still build. And when they left the cafe, Milo trotted happily between them, leash bouncing from hand to hand. Daniel turned to Eliza. Come by the house tomorrow. There's something I want to show you. What? The letters. The ones she wrote. To both of us. Eliza smiled through her tears. I'd like that. They walked off into the soft afternoon light, siblings, finally found. But there was one last twist left. Something still waiting at home. The next morning, sunlight trickled through the half-drawn curtains of Daniel's living room. He stood by the old chest, the same one where the letters, the photograph, and the secrets had first come pouring out. But today he held something new in his hands. It was an envelope, still sealed, tucked in the bottom of the chest, beneath a loose panel that had slipped the night before when Daniel was moving it. Written on the front, in his mother's familiar cursive, to both of you when the time is right. He placed it carefully on the coffee table just as the doorbell rang. Milo barked twice and rushed to the door, tail wagging. Eliza stepped inside, tentative but smiling. Hey, she said. I brought muffins. Daniel laughed. You didn't have to, but thank you. She noticed the envelope immediately. Her breath caught. You found another one. I think this one was meant for both of us. She sat down slowly, and together, with trembling fingers, they opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. The ink had faded slightly, but the words were clear. My dearest Daniel and Eliza, if you're reading this, then the impossible has happened. You've found each other. I wish I could have been there to see it. I wish I could have told you both years ago, but the truth is I was afraid. I didn't think I deserved a second chance, not with Eliza, and not with the pain I caused. But I never stopped loving either of you. Eliza, you were the hardest goodbye of my life. I held you for just a few hours before letting go. I thought I was doing the right thing, but it haunted me every single day. Daniel, I raised you the best I could, but I kept my heart guarded. I didn't want to risk hurting you with truths you didn't ask for. That was my failure. But if you're sitting together now reading this, then maybe, just maybe, there is healing ahead. Forgive me for the silence, for the fear, for the wasted time. You both deserved better. Love each other. That's all I ask. Mom, asterisk, asterisk. Eliza wiped her eyes, hands trembling. She never gave up on us. Daniel nodded, eyes glassy. No, she just didn't know how to say it. They sat in silence, the letter resting between them like a fragile bridge between worlds. Past and present, pain and peace. Then Milo barked and pawed at the door. Daniel raised an eyebrow. You need something, boy? Milo barked again, then ran to the back door. Daniel followed. Out in the backyard, Milo ran to a small patch near the garden and started digging. Daniel stepped closer. I swear, if you buried a muffin, we're going to have words. But then he saw it. Something shiny buried just beneath the surface. Daniel knelt and gently brushed away the dirt. It was a small tin box. Rusty, old, but locked. He brought it inside where Eliza examined it. There's a tiny keyhole. Daniel searched the chest again. Nothing. Then he remembered the key on Milo's collar. Not the tag. The tiny gold charm beside it. He unclipped it and tried it in the lock. Turned. The box creaked open. Inside, a photograph, a locket, and one final envelope. Daniel opened the last envelope and unfolded the letter inside. It was different. Typed. Older. It was a legal document. An adoption form. Signed by their mother. But not completed. Daniel frowned. She was trying to bring you back. Legally. She never finished it. Eliza looked stunned. She wanted to fix it. Daniel nodded. But she was sick. She ran out of time. They both stared at the papers, a weight settling over them. Not of guilt, but of understanding. Eliza finally whispered, "We can still honor that. Maybe not with paper, but with this, with us." Daniel reached for the locket in the tin. Inside was a photo of the two of them as babies, one of the few that must have existed before Eliza was given up. And on the other side, their mother's picture. 3 pieces. One family. Later that evening, Daniel and Eliza sat in the backyard, candles glowing softly around them. A small wooden box sat nearby, filled with the letters, the photo, and the locket. They had decided to create a memory chest of their own. Not to bury the past, but to remember it. "I think she left Milo to guide us," Eliza said. Daniel chuckled. "He's a better family therapist than most humans." Milo wagged his tail and jumped into Eliza's lap. She looked at Daniel and asked, "Do you think we can really start over?" Daniel nodded. "We already did." He raised his glass of tea. "To Mom, to secrets, and second chances." Eliza clinked her glass against his. "To Milo, the bravest messenger there ever was." They laughed. And for the first time in days, it wasn't a laugh colored by sorrow, but joy. That night, Eliza stayed in the guest room. Daniel sat alone on the porch with Milo curled up beside him. He stared at the stars and whispered, "Thank you, Mom. I think we're going to be okay." Milo barked softly in reply. 1 week later, Daniel and Eliza stood side by side in the local animal shelter. "I thought we'd just visit," Eliza said, nervous. Daniel grinned. "I lied. You're meeting your new team." Inside were 5 puppies, all part of a rescue Eliza had helped coordinate years ago, but hadn't been able to adopt out due to space. Now, with Daniel's help, she was opening a new foster wing at the shelter, in memory of their mother, the Margaret Home for Second Chances. Together, they would help lost souls, because one had run into a funeral and changed everything. Thanks for watching Speech Balloon. Thank you so much for watching this emotional journey. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful and unforgettable stories like this one. Sometimes, it's not the words we speak, but the quiet acts of love and loyalty, even from a little puppy, that remind us what truly matters. Drop a dog face in the comments if Milo won your heart too, and let us know which moment made you tear up. Your support means the world to us. See you in the next story.